And welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. Back with my partner, back from Orlando, Mr.
Yes,
Brian
sir.
Siegler. I am Curtis Wilson. And this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast is presented by Dr. Lord Jeremy Counts at Main Street Pharmacy. If you love this podcast, if you love the Hokies and the town of Blacksburg, make sure you are supporting Main Street Pharmacy when you make your way to town.
Whether you need prescriptions, a tube of toothpaste, or just want to stop and say hello, let Jeremy and his team take care of you. The money that you spend at Main Street Pharmacy goes towards the things you love and support. So next time you're in Blacksburg, head on down to 301 South Main Street and tell them Curtis and Brian sent you. Buddy.
And grab a sticker.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
How was Orlando, first of all?
It was pretty awesome, dude. It was pretty awesome. We had a good time. We were there for a week. When you guys were on live last week, we were coming back from MGM or Hollywood Studios, whatever it was. We were heading to the parking lot when you guys went live. Got to jump in and watch a little bit on the trip back to the house. So it was pretty cool being on the other side of things there.
You actually, it was pretty funny. Brian was texting like, "All right, get on a plane. Won't be able to see the game for the next hour." Then you're popping up and you're like, I'm back. I'm watching the game again. But
yeah. So we had a connecting flight. We went from Richmond to Charlotte and then Charlotte to Orlando. So I was like, all right, I gotta kind of work as much as I can. Pull out my phone, watch a little bit here, watch a little bit there. I got to see all of in real time. Got to see all of the first and all of the fourth and kind of spots here and there, the second and third.
Nice. Well, let's talk about that. But before we talk about the upset of Liberty, the 23-22 win, obviously, on our minds and our thoughts, all the UVA tributes, which for both schools, give them massive kudos, give kudos around the country. I mean, when Liberty said they were going with their blue, Tech pivoted hard. You could tell there was no names on the back of jerseys. The orange rolled out, which Tally, I'm sure, is going to have conversations with us in about a month about wearing orange. We're good in orange. But that was awesome to see the blue and the orange there, the helmet stickers.
Well, we're undefeated in all orange since Beamer, right?
I'd have to go look at that. Where's Clark? Where's Clark ruling that? Clark, if you're listening tonight, pop us a message about the record in orange because I know Clark would know. The helmet stickers were awesome too. Again, from across the country. But I think the one that got me and you, Brian, the most was what the football staff and Coach Pride did with Fontel Mines.
Yeah, that was big. Like really great gesture, really good for Fontel. I know that was probably meant a lot to him to be there and to be able to do that. Out front, in front of everybody. I think that was a really good gesture, and I'm sure he appreciates it.
Really, yeah. I mean, he was up there with the three players, with Coach Pry, leading them out onto the field with the UVA Sabre flag. It was just really cool to see. And all that, these guys were playing with both schools. Both schools you're playing that with on the back of your mind. Lynchburg is an hour, Charlottesville roughly 2 hours. It's not like these schools are, 6 hours apart. They're up the road. Yeah, a lot of these guys played with each other. So
a lot of guys played with each other in high school, played with each other
in college,
against each other in high school. So I mean, there's still a brotherhood across these teams in the Commonwealth.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, let's say this: it's finally good to be wrong.
It is. First time in a while, man.
First time in a while we have been wrong on picking against the Hokies, and we love to see it. And let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the side of the ball that maybe played its best game, and that's the offense, and especially the run game. If you take out Grant Wells, got sacked 6 times, not good. Some were on him, some were on the O-line. But if you take out all of his sacks against the net, the Hokies ran the ball over at 4.7 a carry.
Yeah.
I joked with Brian. Brian, if we ran 4.7 a carry, what would our record be all year? And you're like, 7 wins, maybe 8 wins. Like seriously,
at least 6. I mean,
at
minimum
least
6.
6. I'm going high in there. And I mean, it was led obviously by Jalen Holston, 99 yards, 3 touchdowns, career day for him. What did you see? I know you looked at a little extra tape, the last couple days. What was it different about? He looked different Saturday, just watching him live. And I know you've looked a little bit deeper at the tape than I've had a chance to.
I mean, it helps that the holes were a little bit bigger than they've been for him all year, so that was that was beneficial. We were moving some bodies a little bit more, not necessarily getting to the second level like I'd like to see, but we were able to move the guys on the defensive line a lot better than we have for most of the season, and that enabled Holston to kind of get those 3 to 5 yard chunks instead of those 1 to 2 yard chunks we've been seeing from him for most of the season.
100%. And then Keyshawn King in his sort of spell backup change of pace role, 11 for 78. I mean, he came in and exploded. Not only with that, also had a big pass play we'll talk about. But I was looking back and I was going through the data and the stats after the game. And I think the big key here, and Brian, you kind of mentioned it. We're going to talk about the offensive line in a few minutes here. But those two guys had a combined -2 yards in the net. That's huge. Yep. Because it tells, when I talked to you about it, it told you that basically there was no penetration on the defensive side of the ball, or if it was at the line of scrimmage. It was not in the backfield.
Exactly. Yeah, not a lot of negative plays in this one, and that's really big for a team that's struggling offensively. If we're not backing up, but whether it's the negative plays that we're allowing or if it's those unforced errors, if we're not backing up a lot, you're going to have a lot more success. You're going to have a lot more sustained drives. You're going to be able to keep your offense on the field more. And that was big for us because, I mean, when we look at the time of possession and plays ran and stuff like that, this is one of our better games in those two metrics all year.
Yeah. It seemed like we were just going forward. The guys were always going forward, falling forward, where I feel like that's such a big key in this thing. Brian, I know, yeah, he's smiling. He knows what I'm talking about next. The offensive line, definitely probably the best run game of the season, without a doubt. I mean, I don't think it's even a question. I know you mentioned to me right before we went on, you said the last couple games might have been Parker Clement's best games. He's definitely, from where he was, I mean, it's slow. It's like
again, we're not beating the world here, but
it's better. We're getting back to where I think we expected him to be. And I think it goes, good evening, LeVar. How you doing tonight? It goes back to, I was telling you, it's the muscle memory thing Robbie talked about last week, right? Is it finally kicking in what Rudolph and what Bowen want him to do? Is it finally connecting? In his body, you've told me before, is you're supposed to take this step in this scheme.
Yeah. And
is it finally he's taking the right steps and things like that?
Well, we talked about it, and we when we talked about the jumping off sides thing, we said that a lot of that is you're thinking too much up here about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how you need to get a step and all this other stuff. If you're trusting your technique, if you feel like you know how the play is going to go, what your responsibility is, and you're not thinking about a whole lot of shit pre-snap, it's going to be a lot easier for you to execute.
Absolutely. Now, for one guy, especially in the run game, to be his first time on a college field, we saw Xavier Chaplin for the first time playing left tackle. Now, every time he did have Silas at guard, so he had that old friend that we know Silas was always going to be better at guard. But when you got a chance to not only looking at it live when you saw big number 65 come in, but when you got to look at the tape, what was he doing where it's like, first of all, holy shit, he's a freshman and we saved his red shirt.
Yeah, we saved his red shirt. He's out there moving bodies in the run game. pretty consistently. Um, I would say, I mean, from a run game perspective, probably the best blocking from a left tackle we've had for the year for the plays that he was in there. We obviously saw that he had a couple plays here or there that weren't great, especially in the pass game. But I really liked what I saw from him in the run game for the snaps that he was in there.
Yeah, he did get kind of abused on the sack for a safety, but there were a couple times he got Darrell Robinson, who is their best defensive end, and he is a guy you can see with some of the moves. He made some big plays Saturday for Liberty. There were a couple times he got a hold of him, and Robinson's like a super senior. So he's 21, 22 years old. He's a full-grown man, and he just boop, like, yeah, you're nothing.
He locked him in. He washed him out. Yeah.
Just hammered him. Now, there were quite a few sacks. I think the total was 6. Yeah, 6 total sacks. Just looking at it, they weren't all on the line. There were a couple times where Grant Wells was – I don't know what he was doing.
I'd say at least 2 were on Wells.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there were a couple where he took the sack when he could have easily just gotten rid of the football. And then there was one where you want him to take the sack. So that's kind of, if it's not there, you'd rather him take the sack and throw it away so the clock keeps moving.
Yeah. So, again, not all on them. And I know you said you saw it from Chaplin, but Chaplin's a true freshman. First time ever playing. Yeah. And so that is what it is.
I know. And I know you had a beef with him being in that situation close around the goal line.
I did not like that. Yeah, I did. Yeah. The text is like, it was like we were at the 5, and it's just like, I wouldn't put him in here. And they did, but in the end, it didn't kill us. It came close with a 1-point game and giving up a safety. It came close. But I think if anything with him, it's now, look what they did to you. How do you counter when they do this again? It's on film. And the thing that me and you have talked about all year, for certain guys, getting it live, seeing the game speed. The moment didn't seem too big for him. And the stuff that he struggled with is stuff that can be cleaned up. And it's probably attributed to being a guy who's 18 years old.
Yeah. And I think the big thing, when you text me, I was like, all right, I haven't been watching. I at that point I just watched the third quarter or the first quarter. I'd been kind of flipping in here. I was like, how much has he gotten snap wise up to this point? You're like, he's played a lot. I was like, all right, then if it's his time to go in, it's his time to go in.
You did say that.
That's just how it is. If you're getting a guy used to game speed, game situations, then you're going to put him in there. You see what he can do. See what you got.
100%. All right, Brian, before we move over to the pass game, let's just, because it's the night before Thanksgiving, this is what I'm drinking on tonight. A little Smooth Ambler Contradiction whiskey, 92 proof. A little whiskey and water over here for me. What are you drinking on?
I got a little whiskey and ginger.
There we go.
Whiskey and ginger. I got a beer in the hole.
Beer in the hole. I'm just gonna pick another one of them when I'm done with that one. Do share of what you're drinking on tonight if you're listening out there. All right, pass game. Brian, if I told you last Tuesday Caleb Smith is going to have 1 catch for 5 yards, did you think this would be a win for the Hokies?
I would have said, yeah, we losing that one. ain't no way that we're gonna pull it out if Caleb's getting 1 catch for 5 yards. Because to me that sounds like we're not doing a whole lot through the air, and we didn't do a whole lot through the air, but we did a lot more than I would have expected, given that Smith had 1 catch for 5 yards.
Well, we were efficient through the air. I mean, Grant did not turn the ball over. We didn't have any turnovers all day. He threw for 70%. He did take some sacks. He threw for 70%, though, 14 to 20. But of those 14 completions, 10 were either to tight ends or running backs. So, and I know some of the plays were big. They were little check downs. Like, I mean, Gallo had that flat pass where they just kind of forgot about him, and he made them absolutely pay. And then, you know, your boy played a little bit more. There were some times where Gallo was not on the field with Daquan Wright. He was by himself out there, and he popped a big play as well.
Yeah. We saw a little mix here and there with the tight ends. Good to see Wright kind of get back into the game plan there after kind of being somewhat absent the previous two games. Get him back involved in the offense. Gallo kind of getting lost on a couple plays. They lose him. He's able to get upfield, get some good yardage. And then we had kind of strategic first down catches, like stick movers from Blue and Lofton respectively. So, I mean, that was kind of a little bit of everybody working in there.
Yep.
And kind of took up some of the slack that we had from Caleb not having a lot of targets.
No,
because he wasn't targeted very much either. It wasn't just that, he only had one catch of 5 yards. He didn't have a ton of targets.
He didn't have a ton of targets at all. And, we talked about the little short stick movers. Jaden Blue had one of those. Lofton. Keyshawn King had quite a few checkdowns had a couple checkdowns along with a big play. And we had 3 really explosive plays. And each of those 3 explosive plays helped set up things for us.
I'll tell you what King does so well in the passing game is that he catches those little dump downs or those little quick swings, and he's got that like just a little extra gear that the linebacker or the safety think they have an angle on it and they don't. And next thing you know, what looks like a 2 to 3 yard gain ends up being a first down.
Or 25 yards down the field if everybody plays bad angles. There were a couple passes, though, that Wells didn't miss that could have been big, but they were just a hair late. And again, seeing the things we're seeing where, it kind of is what he is. Couple big, to me, 2 of the biggest stats was the 3rd and 4th down conversions. Hokies 9 of 21, 3 for 3 on 4th on that, right at 50%. I'll take that every day. I'll take that every day between 3rd and 4th down. You're going to be right at 50%. And how about in the red zone? We had 5 opportunities because at the end there.
Yep.
But they punched it in 3 times. And they punched it in when it mattered. They did take a couple risks and everything. But those stats, we've talked about it kind of all year, right? We've talked about it a lot. We've talked about the run game. We've talked about 3rd down. We've talked about red zone efficiency.
Yep.
For the first time all year, everything was on the right side.
Yeah. Yeah. We finally kind of put, we talked about keys every week, right?
Yes, we do.
And usually we're good for about, we usually have 2 or 3 on each side of the football, and maybe we hit one of those on each side of the football, maybe 2 on the defensive side. We finally got the offense where they were hitting about two or 3 of the keys. They were actually okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Check.
We actually checked them off here.
Yeah. And the thing is, I didn't even talk about those keys. I didn't because I had preached them all year, and I'm like, okay, I'm changing this up. The keys were tackles for loss on them and us.
Yeah.
They did their thing. But we matched them in the tackles for loss in the sacks category,
Yep.
And the thing is, a couple of our sacks, we had 5, 12 total tackles for loss, 5 sacks. A couple of our sacks were the one thing I said, we have to win the turnovers. This is a team that turns the ball over. If we can get turnovers, we got 2. One led to a touchdown. The other read the game out. Kudos on the defense, which we'll talk about in a little while. Special teams was the stock market, though. There were some high highs and there were some ugly lows.
Big time, man. So you open it up. We got a trick play. I mean, we finally see. Okay, we get a fake punt there,
which was fake field goal.
Fake field goal. Sorry, fake
field goal. Little freshman John Love running for his life gets a first down. but it was perfect.
Hey, he held on to the ball though. He held on to
that
because that was a big hit, and they went for the ball.
That was a hit, but the perfect little option there. Peter Moore, the last couple weeks has looked more consistently like Peter Moore.
Yeah,
we've talked about there are some games where he starts out booming and then he looks like crap for a while, then he gets back. This game, he looked good. I mean, -9 punt yards because DeMario decided to try to field that punt, which he should not have. But there were some issues in the kick return game. I mean, we gave up a touchdown in the kick return to Shedro Lewis, a guy who had been out. And we gave up some other big ones. You know, Demario Douglas had a 37-yard kick return. So it wasn't perfect by any means, but I guess you can say, special teams offset.
Yeah, probably a net zero here, but you know, you hate it on the side of things where you allow a touchdown on a kickoff, and some of that is complacency. I think we get used to guys kicking it deep, guys not bringing it out of the end zone, and next thing you know, you're not where you need to be.
True.
So
very true.
And I think probably we saw probably more returns out of the end zone in this game than we've seen for most of the year. And I think it may be mentality wise, they weren't ready to have to cover that many kicks, which is it's a wild thing to say, but
yeah, it's true. But all in all, that kind of washed out. Now let's flip the defense, because this defense surrendered 13 points to a team averaging 30. Yes, it does say 22. I don't count special teams. And obviously I take the safety off the board. I strictly look at what the defense gave up. They gave up 13 points on a team that's averaging 30. They gave up 332 total yards, which is almost 100 yards less. And when you take a look at a 1-point game, every yard matters. 50 yards here or there could have been the difference where the Hokies are on the L. But Brian, I think the thing that maybe we'd said it needs to happen, and it did. Brent Pry says after the game, Chris Marv calls the game. And I think you noticed some stuff about Pry on the sideline when you heard about it. It kind of, again, I'm trying to watch the game, but I also have kids running around the house. But you said you noticed something about Brent Pry while you were watching the game that you hadn't seen previous.
I mean, he looked more engaged with what was going on especially on the offensive side, but also with the defense being able to understand the situation a little bit more. I think you saw that, with the fake field goal. I mean, you saw that with how we kind of closed the game out, both on the defensive side and on the offensive side. It just looked like we were more put together and organized in those moments that mattered.
Now, let me ask this. You watched parts of the game live. I know you've looked at some tape. Any noticeable differences on the way Chris Marv called the game from what you've seen with the tape with Brent Pry?
I saw a little bit more cover 2 than we had seen with Pry recently. I saw more consistent aggressiveness. And I think we saw a little bit more of a mix and match with some personnel that we hadn't seen with Pry. And I think some of those things ended up paying off for us. And we'll talk about a little bit of that here, especially when we get to the linebacking unit.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask this. When you say we saw a lot more cover 2, is it just the scheme we're playing, or do you think this is more a philosophical thing with Marv, where I know, like, what's for those out there, because you've explained it to me, but explain what a cover 2 does for your defense and what it allows all the position groups to do.
So in particular, I mean, we let our defensive line kind of eat a little bit more. We were a little bit more attacking with the linebackers, particularly with the Will. We've been blitzing a lot with Sam. We blitzed a little bit more with Will this week. And I think some of that paid off.
Okay.
With the way we were rolling coverages in that cover 2.
How did Chamari look?
We did some like man under when we did those. We did 2 man under when we did some of those blitzes. So
so we were sort of attempting to, if they were going to run.
Sometimes it was a zone blitz. Sometimes it was a 2 man under look.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, let's talk about those position groups. And I know we want to hit the linebackers, but I want to hit them second because I feel like Robbie kind of called out the D-line last week. I don't know if any of them listened, but they answered because they had their best day of the year, especially Tywan Garbett. 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. He forced the game-clinching fumble.
Yep.
I mean, he had been banged up for the last month. He looked healthy, and he looked, like Tywan we expected all year.
Yeah, he was firing off the ball. There was one when I was looking at the tape later. It was a sack that he got, and this was showing that he was where he needed to be physically because he kind of had ran out of the play, got blocked, and the quarterback was stepping up, about to take off to run, and he covered ground so quick and just got him to the ground. One where I was looking at, I was like, yeah, we're about to see a first down run here. And then all of a sudden he closes the gap and brings him down for like a 1 or 2 yard sack. And I was like, oh, okay. That's a little different. We haven't seen that in a few weeks.
That's also awesome to hear about that. Now let's also talk about the inside guys, because a couple of those guys had some good games, and we saw a young face who we'd seen a little earlier. Pollard gets a sack. Kendrick gets a tackle loss. Saw Kendrick bat a few balls down.
Yep.
And we saw Moiston get some more run, including a tackle for loss.
Kendrick's best game by far the whole season.
Okay. And he'd been playing good. He'd been getting a lot of mentions. But again, is it that cover 2 and the cover 2 man under where it's like, listen, we've got the 2 safeties back. If something's given up underneath, it's okay. Go attack.
Yeah. And we were kind of playing around with that coverage too, and I think that let them. I think we were twisting a lot more too up front, and that gave them a little bit more opportunity in the pass rush game to kind of create some confusion, get the hands up, make some plays there.
Nice. So again, defensive line, looked really good against Liberty. Now let's go to the linebacker room, because this is the one that kind of maybe we saw some foreshadowing to 2023 for the Hokies. Now, first of all, give kudos to Dax. Dax felt like the normal Dax production. 6 tackles. He had a sack. He had a tackle and a half for loss. But then you look at Kali Lawson, second on the team in tackles with 5. He had a sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a fumble recovery. And when I saw that fumble recovery where he was located, I said, Brian, I can't really see it on a live film. Where's he playing? So where was he aligned a lot of the day, Brian?
Most of the time he was at will, which we hadn't really seen him play in about a month.
Yeah.
He's mostly been kind of rotating in at Sam the last 4 games. He was playing a lot of will and doing a lot of big things there. Definitely had his best game playing will of the season. He looked like the moment was never too big for him. He was only, really out of position, out of the spot, a handful of times in the game. He was really active, rushing the passer. And he did a good job in coverage.
That's awesome to hear, because I say foreshadowing, because if he's playing will, Tisdale did not play as much at will. And I'm wondering if Tisdale comes back, do you think Tisdale would have enough of a grasp of the defense to move over to Mike, and where Lawson would be the will linebacker?
That's a great question. And that's something that I'm going to keep my eye on this offseason if he comes back, because that's something that could give us some more athleticism at the linebacker position across the board, which is probably the one area that we have struggled in. Is athleticism at Mike. Dax is who he is. We know that. When he's coming forward towards the line of scrimmage, pretty darn good. When he's having to retreat, when he's having to chase guys in coverage, not as great, right? So,
sure.
if we can put Tisdale in that position, and we still, we got other guys that haven't played as many snaps that are probably going to have something to say about that. But you bring back Tisdale, you at least have a proven commodity at that spot. And I know Pry isn't afraid to go undersized at Mike.
No,
So
no, he's not at all. But again, I think seeing Lawson there and then see him play as well as he did.
yeah.
If he had just had an average game, but he was clearly
watching him go sideline to sideline is ridiculous. The amount of ground he covers and how quick he covers it is crazy. I was watching one pursuit, and like it was him and Dax kind of moving in tandem, but it was like for every 2 steps Dax was taking, Lawson was taking one and covering the same ground in those 2. It's like so he was catching up with Dax pretty damn quick there. And it's just, he moves so well. So, if he can kind of get, again, another 10 or 15 pounds on him and get a little bit more comfortable in the system, the sky's the limit for what he can do.
Awesome. Let's talk about the Sam because, again, Keontae Jenkins tied for the team lead in tackles, had a tackle for loss as well. And Walker, I know you mentioned he didn't have a great game, but he showed that ability to spell. And I think, although as dynamic as Lawson is at Sam, I think Keontae Jenkins is that steady Eddie. Just talking with him earlier this year, he's going to do the right thing. He's going to be in the right place. He knows what he's supposed to do there. And as you go into next year, we were worried about we're going to lose a Sam. I don't think we worry about that anymore. Because I think
now if you get Lawson settled in at will, then you still have Jenkins, and then you have Walker getting enough reps where he feels comfortable riding out another year, right?
100%.
And Jenkins, the first 2 series where we forced them off the field real quick, he was the guy getting it done. And late in the game, he was the guy kind of getting it done too. When the defensive line was feasting, he was the guy that was kind of cleaning up some stuff if the ball did get out there.
Nice. All right, let's talk one more piece. Let's talk about the secondary. And that first touchdown drive did not look pretty for the secondary.
No. You had the big throw down the sideline on the 3rd down there. Just not in a good position to kind of make a play on the ball. After that, you had the big run. Hawkins gets a bad run fit, kind of gets ate up by the tight end. And then the next play, it's the quarterback draw. Another bad run fit, loses leverage. They're able to punch it in the end zone there. And, some of that, they kind of work themselves into a good alignment to work against for that draw by motioning the running back out of the backfield. But, when you're there, you're able to make the play. You got to get a good fit, not lose leverage, and come in there and make the play.
But, after that, they settled down completely, only giving up 2 field goals the rest of the game.
Yep.
And I tell you what, Mansour Delane, holy crap. The progression that young man has made throughout this year is crazy. Chris Coleman pulled a stat out there on Twitter the other day. They targeted him 6 times. 1 catch, negative yards. That's a great day for a corner, regardless what you say. He also forced a fumble that Khalil Lawson recovered. And he himself, you just feel where he came from, it's a good football university or good football high school. But how much should we be looking at Derek Jones? Because with Derek Jones, you've got the other guys he's coaching, right? A lot of them have been here a while. Mansour is a clean slate. Mansour came in exact. How much credit should Derek Jones be given in the development of Mansour?
You got to give him some credit here because he identified that he's got a young talent there that can step in and be this really big time contributor in year 1. And I think in terms of when we talk about coaching and we talk about scheme, Delane having that clean state, I think did benefit him because he's not trying to get rid of any bad habits. He's not trying to get rid of old technique. There's none of that stuff kind of gumming up the mentals. And I think that helped him, and that helped him be able to kind of almost be on a even footing with the veterans kind of starting the year. And it was just, the physicality and speed of the game had to get where it needed to be. But, in terms of the mentals, he picked it up real quick. And that was one of the things they talked about at the start of the season, that he had really picked up what he was supposed to be doing really quickly. And it was all about, again, physicality, speed of the game. So, and he got there pretty quick as well. And, when you look at him and then you get Strong back next year, I think that's a solid 1-2 that you feel pretty good about.
Well, plus having guys like Cam Johnson who played this year where they've gotten their feet wet, where they've seen what it's like, where you that there was a couple times Johnson made good plays, there were some struggles, but you kind of know, okay, just from looking at it 10,000 feet, he can play Division I college football.
Yeah.
He's not getting crushed out there and looking terrible. We've got some steps to make, but he'll make them.
Exactly.
Brian, the one thing me and you've talked about, especially in the fourth quarter this year, because the fourth quarters have not been favorable to the Hokies. The ODU game, the Pitt game, Miami at the end, Georgia Tech, NC State. There are 5 games right there that essentially the Hokies lost in the fourth quarter. But this was different. This fourth quarter looked completely different. The Hokies controlled that quarter beginning to end.
Yeah, we finally saw complimentary football in the fourth quarter. You start the fourth quarter down, your offense scores, and your defense holds, and then your offense runs out the clock. A novel fucking concept, but we hadn't done it all year.
All year. Up to game 11.
And it was the best 4-quarter defensive game we've seen.
Yeah.
Hands down. They played good defense for 4 quarters. We didn't see the fourth quarter collapse that we've seen recently. And some of that has to do with what we talked about earlier with the offense controlling the flow of the game.
Yes.
Even when we're not putting up a ton of points, the flow of the game was controlled. The defense wasn't on the field getting worked. And so you had complimentary football. And the defense was able to close it out, get a big play when they were kind of getting, a good drive by Liberty going there, made a big play, got the ball back. Offense gets on the field,
drives down,
closes it out.
Take some time off the clock and drive down, because that play, that touchdown late was a 5.5 minute drive.
Yeah.
And so Liberty goes from being down where it's like we have time to score to, okay, it's under 8 minutes. We've only put 1 score on this team today. We've only put 1 score on this team, and that was at the beginning of the first quarter.
And at that point, they'd only had 3 drives that really got them across the Hokies 40.
It's true. So it was great to see. So we closed the book on the Liberty game. Hokies get their 3rd win of the year. It felt good. All right, Brian, let's flip to it. Let's talk about it just a little bit here. The cancellation of the Commonwealth Cup game this weekend. That's what happens when you don't mute your other computer you're working from. Right there. But in all seriousness, I don't think when everything happened last weekend or the weekend before that, excuse me, I couldn't foresee this game being played. I couldn't. In all honesty. So when they announced the cancellation this week, I wasn't shocked, and I completely get it.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at, the timing of everything, I think there was a good job by everyone communicating what was happening. Mm-hmm. And we totally understand. I mean, I think that's the big thing. There's, you lose a significant three significant members of your team. You got a lot of people that are absolutely hurting right now.
Pain.
I could not imagine
No.
trying to focus on a game of that magnitude
Mm-mm.
under those conditions.
No, not at all.
And just like the Hokies said, we kind of left the ball in UVA's court, and we're kind of good either way that they wanted to play
Yep.
it.
Now that was one of the best things you saw all week. Is it's up to them. We're not going to push. We're not going to try to do anything. If they say they want to play, we will play. If they don't, we as a community completely get it. And with that being said, I know, Alan Tisdale said, I think the week before during the Liberty game, and just saying, if UVA didn't want to play, we should head down to Charlottesville with some of the players and just kind of show the respect. It's football, and this is bigger than football. It is bigger than football.
Yep.
We talked about it last week at the beginning of the episode. 3 young men lost their lives, and it's amazing Mike Hollins is out of the hospital right now. And it stinks because it's, usually right now we'd be flipping to know the enemy. We'd be shit talking UVA. We'd be going all after it. It would have been a fun hate week, but in this case, you move forward. You help that community and that team as much as possible. Just as human beings. And
I mean, it's nothing but love this week. We talk about this will be hate week, but this week it's nothing but love.
Nothing but love. Nothing but love. All right, Brian, let's flip over. Let's talk a little Hokies news, other sports. Let's talk about the men's hoop team. Starting the season out, 4-1, 5-1.
5-1.
5-1, excuse me. Got to remember there were 2 games played. But they lose in the finals of the Charleston Classic to the College of Charleston, where one of my cousins go. And the thing is, other than the first game, and really the Hokies did not play a good 3 games down there at all. To be in the championship game, especially with the Penn State game, went where they couldn't hit a 3 after the 7-minute mark, I think is what it was, the rest of the game. They didn't
shoot
good.
Well in really the last 3 games there.
No, not at all.
So, and particularly the Penn State game. The Penn State game was about as ugly of a shooting game as we'll probably see from them all year. But they didn't shoot particularly well, especially in the second half against Charleston. They didn't shoot that well earlier in the tournament. So, I mean, it's just, we're probably feel good about how this played out considering how poorly they shot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're kind of disappointed because that was a tournament that you should have won and you didn't.
100%. Should have won.
So
and even you play like
that's kind of the way you weigh it there. It's like, okay, well, considering how bad we shot, we did all right, but that was a winnable tournament that we didn't win.
Yeah, it's those things that, we didn't want to see this happen, right? Because we know that last year there was that lull for a while.
Yeah.
And we've got to get there with minimal losses for it.
You don't want to put yourself in the same situation you were in last year where you got to
win out and you got to win the ACC tournament. No, we don't want that.
Yeah. You don't want to have to be perfect after Valentine's in order to make the tournament.
So again, okay start. The next few games here, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone because, I had to run out. We need cornstarch for tomorrow for one of my wife's dishes, and she thought she had some, but she didn't. I went to 2 grocery stores. Do not attempt to buy cornstarch the day before Thanksgiving.
Paprika either.
0. Oh, did you have the same thing?
I had to run out and get some paprika earlier.
Nothing.
So I went to Food Line. Nothing in any of the racks for paprika, like 4 or 5 different brands. But the Food Line brand I pulled, it has like the little like the roller thing. I
Yeah.
pulled the rack out, and there was some at the very back of the shelf that had fallen out the back of the rack. So I grabbed one of them bitches and got out of there.
Lucky you. They had no cornstarch anywhere. I went to Kroger and Food Line. Nothing. So,
I got some if you need it, man.
I think
Pull
her
up.
mom has some. I think Mama has some. So I'm about to run over there in the morning and get some. But with the Hokies now, it's Charleston Southern on Friday. It's Minnesota in the ACC Big Ten Challenge at Castle next Monday, and then it's Carolina the Sunday after that. So this three, and then Dayton and Oklahoma State after that. This 5-game stretch is big. I think Hokies got to get out.
We'll find out a lot about them. We'll find out a lot about them.
We'll find out a lot about them, but if they don't get out 4-1, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I'm worried, and I know. All right, women's basketball stays undefeated. They are top 15 ranked, number 11 in the country. Did have a close call the other day where they have a pretty big lead in the fourth quarter, but smashed Missouri today. So good for the Lady Hokies.
Well, when you get up big on Kentucky in the first quarter, you can afford to, let it get tight there at the end.
I just don't like tight.
I'd prefer
I'm
only
not
certain circumstances where I like tight.
Well, the only time I like tight is when it's not my team and I just want to be entertained. I mean, that's it. That's the only time I want tight. The only time I want tight. But again, they're 5-0, and going to the finals of the or that they win. No, they won. That was a championship game today. So they won that was the championship game of the Pink Flamingo. That's cool. Hopefully get a cool Pink Flamingo statue. VT Wrestling, I know this was several weeks ago. They did lose to number 4 Ohio State 18-13, but Ohio State is a power. And to hang around where they did, this team's going to be good again. This team's probably going to win the ACC. This team's going to compete to have some guys potentially win national championships individually. And it's really fun, right? Because if the ACC network has done nothing right, they've got Friday. They've nailed Friday nights during the winters.
Yes, they have.
With the wrestling meets. They
finally got something right. And without having to get like a bunch of direction from everybody else. Like we weren't like actively complaining or campaigning. They just actually got it right on their own.
And it's too
good for them.
And the thing is, the ACC is a good wrestling conference.
Yeah.
It's a good wrestling. So they have the 6 and the 8s, and it's like, this is entertaining. So let's hope the boys rebound and can take it. All right, Brian. I want to see your anger face here.
Oh, it's coming.
EA Sports announced this week that the NCAA football game is going to be delayed until 2024. That's double bird Stone Cold Steve Austin style if you aren't watching tonight.
I hate it. And I'll tell you why I hate it. Because I know, knowing EA, we're not going to get a better product because of this delay. That's the fucking problem. We're going to get like a slightly different version of Madden. It's still going to be the same thing we were going to fucking get in 2023. It's just coming a year later.
Well, maybe they'll fool you, Brian. Maybe they're going to come on completely.
If they do something that actually gets that I'm impressed with, then I'll give them the kudos in 2024.
All right.
Fuck them though. Until then.
Well, I mean, we were all excited, right? I mean, you got multiple consoles.
So
I was like, I got
I just admitted I thought it was going to be a somewhat Madden clone with some tweaks here and there. Yeah. I was still excited about it because I haven't gotten to play that since
9 years.
Yeah, I mean,
2014.
A new game. I've played it elsewhere, but I haven't played a new game in that long.
All right. So before we get into some more topics tonight, we're going to take a quick pause from our digital partners.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
All right, Brian, let's flip it. Let's talk some other college football because I think between tomorrow's games, NFL, and the Egg Bowl,
Yep.
the Egg Bowl is always a uber entertaining game.
Always.
Friday, all-day football. Saturday, all-day football. We're between doing decorations, blowing leaves, we're going to be locked in this weekend. And let's talk about the CFP rankings because – there are a few things on here that grind the fuck out of my gears. And
What's the first one? Give me the first one.
Well, here's my first one. All right, first of all, let's go top 6. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4. No issues. None. By the way, the end of that TCU game, that might have been the most impressive thing I've ever seen, the way a special team unit got together and kicked that field goal to win that game. Massively impressed. Here's where my issues begin is at number 5. The 2-loss LSU Tigers, who lost by getting their asses handed to them in Death Valley against Tennessee. Not a 1 or 2 touchdown game, but they got their asses handed to them. And then their second loss is to Florida State, who Florida State looks to have a resurgent year, but that was basically a home game in which they botched at the end. They are ahead of the 1-loss USC Trojans. I'm not the biggest Southern Cal fan. 18 years ago officially made me hate them with that game in D.C. Southern Cal has lost 1 game. They just beat a good UCLA team.
Yep.
A good UCLA team. Their only loss was to Utah, who is another good team who just went freaking Major League 2 giant marbles at the end of a game in Utah.
Yep.
I don't like that. Utah or USC has lost 1 game this year. 1 game by 1 point. LSU has not. The other thing that grinds my gears is number 7. The Alabama Crimson Tide with their 2 losses are ahead of Clemson with their 1 loss. Yes, I know Clemson lost by several scores to Notre Dame, who is resurgent right now. It's the whole I know you can lose multiple times in multiple ways. This team has lost once. Caliber of competition, that is all in the eye of the beholder. That just irritates me. No 2-loss team should be above a 1-loss team this late in the season.
So I'll tell you what grinds my gears the most, and that's LSU and Alabama being ahead of Tennessee.
Okay.
I don't care how low or high you have Tennessee, but LSU and Alabama need to be behind them as long as they have the same number of losses. Because they beat Alabama, they beat LSU.
Yes, they did. They beat them.
Things that happen on the field need to still fucking matter.
Not in the committee's eyes. You got to keep a certain conference happy. You got to keep them happy.
They're setting it up now where they definitely are going to get 2 in. They're trying to sneak Alabama back into this bitch.
They are. They're trying their best. I don't think that will happen because I think that will raise holy hell to everybody, especially if USC and Clemson went out. If USC
right now the only reason.
But wait a second. What if Ohio State or Michigan's only losses to the other?
You absolutely have to put in both of them before you put in any 2-loss SEC game.
You damn right you do.
Got to.
Common freaking sense, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. So as we talk about the playoff, you know me and Brian, and we loved when the 12 idea came up. I just went into this mode this week of people continuously out there and some national media names. And I like the guy. I listen to him personally. The only thing I disagree with him on a lot is Josh Pate. I disagree with him on the 12 talk because he thinks 12 is going to water down the sport. And I don't think he's looking at it through the right lens because Brian, I don't know if you pulled it up tonight. I'm sure you did. I look the last week of the season, there are literally 20 teams that have a shot. If there was a 12-team playoff, there would be 20 teams that have a shot to make the playoffs. Some are playing each other. Some are playing some of their biggest, most intense rivals. And because the CFP committee's already come out and set that precedent of the top 6 conference champions are in this or in regardless, that Cincinnati Tulane game, dude, if they're going to, because the winner goes to the championship game regardless, they are going to have to pull everything out. That game is going to be so entertaining to watch because this is a de facto quarterfinal game.
Yeah. It's a game where whoever loses is eliminated from the process.
Eliminated. They have no chance.
They have no chance.
And the way we look at the way you look at the rankings right now, if this was 12 teams, the AAC is guaranteed that 6th spot. None of the other Power 5 are in the top 25. You've got Tulane at 19, you've got UCF at 22, and you've got Cincy at 24. One of them would be getting in. So you're talking about that game. The stakes aren't just go to the conference championship. The stakes are playoff. If we don't win this game, we can't make the playoff. And for those who say, well, these games just don't matter. Are you kidding me? I can't. What time is that? I think that's a Friday afternoon game, which might mean I need to get the decorations up early on Friday in the rain.
Start early, man. Start early. Start at 10.
I might need to do it tomorrow. Let me look at that because I think that's a 3:30 kick. No, that is a high noon kick.
High noon.
I might be going out tomorrow and putting up decorations.
All right, family, get the hell out of here. I got to put some decorations.
I got to go decorations. Just leave me alone. But for real, though, and then let's look at the Big 12, Brian. You're talking about Kansas State. If they win, they are in.
Yeah.
The Big 12 championship game. And what does that mean? In the future, it's going to mean, well, they have a chance to play for the playoff. They're playing Kansas. That's an in-state rivalry right there, man. That is, like, you tell me if you're Kansas. And right now, if you look at the actual standings, Kansas State would be the last team in if there was 12.
Yep.
If it was 12, Kansas State would be the last team in. Can you imagine, like, this game, like, well, listen, if Kansas State beats Kansas, they're probably holding on to that slot. They might get in. Where if they lose, we not only ruined your chances to get in at large, now you have to win. Well, now you don't even make the Big 12 championship game for your chance because if Texas wins, they get in.
Yep.
So, yeah, these games don't matter. Oh, they don't matter. It's watering down college football, Brian.
It's not, and it's not even more once we get to those divisionless conferences that everyone's moving to.
Holy God, it's going to be even crazier.
Yeah, it's going to be even crazier. And we talked about this earlier before we got on. People saying the games don't matter late. Yeah, they still matter, just they matter in a different way. So they matter in terms of seeding. They matter in terms of cutoff. They matter in terms of who's playing for the conference championship that will ultimately decide who gets those top 6 bids.
True. And
so it's just a different way of looking at it. It's not that the games don't matter. It's that the games matter in a different way.
Well, wouldn't you say this, though? Wouldn't you say it elevates those games?
It elevates them because more matter now. More matter now at the end.
More matter.
Because it's not just, who's going to be the 4. It's who's going to be the 4 and who's going to be the 6. Who's going to be the 6 and the 7, depending on who wins the conference championship. Who's going to be the 12.
Who has a chance to play to get in?
Yeah.
Think about it. Go back to 2011 with Tech and UVA. When the winner went to the ACC championship.
Yeah.
How big would that game have been? It's like in today's or the future circumstances where it's like not only does the winner go to the championship, if they win that game, they're in the playoff.
Yeah.
You're talking about taking it from intense rivalry to just going up, just keep going up.
Well, it's the reason that March Madness and conference championship
holy
games
God
are important. Think about Virginia Tech last year. We know now that Virginia Tech would not have been in the big dance if they didn't win out. I mean, I know that they didn't turn that into a whole lot, but they wouldn't have been there to begin with.
Worst matchup possible, though.
It was.
They gave us the shit matchup. But, we talk about even people who, are in their conference championship games. And I looked at Notre Dame USC. Notre Dame, after that bad stretch, they figured themselves out. They've been beating good teams. If they beat, and this again, I'm looking forward. And I know this is hypothetical shit, but I love this shit. This is why I love college football.
Yeah.
You imagine if USC bumps, or Notre Dame bumps USC this weekend, and they go 9-3, and they beat Clemson, and they beat USC, and they have 2 bad losses. Their only other losses to Ohio State, and it was a war early in the season. They're fighting for probably a 10th or 12th seed.
Yeah.
They're fighting for it. And then USC now says, well, every good intentions we've had is gone because we lost that game. The only way we're getting in is to win our conference. We have to win next week now. And it raises the stakes even more and more and more. So when you look at this thing and you kind of start going through it, because right now, this is who would be, and I'm going by ranks. This is who would be the conference champion. Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, Southern Cal, Clemson, and then I'm going to go Tulane because Tulane is the highest ranked AAC teams. Okay. After those 6, it's Michigan, LSU, Alabama, Oregon, Tennessee, and Penn State. So Kansas State is 1 position out. So let's take it just one step further before we jump on to our big screeners because we've got a bunch this week. Alabama right now in a 12-team playoff would be poised to get in, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They would be. Do you not think on the Plains Auburn would pull everything out of their ass to beat them, to keep them out?
Yeah, I mean, they would go from if everyone below them won,
they're out.
They're out. Especially if Kansas State ultimately plays for the Big 12 and wins it.
Then they're out, and then you're looking at TCU being in because TCU would have 1 loss.
Exactly.
But you sit there, and again, how much does it raise a game like the Iron Bowl? How much does it raise the big game? How much does it raise the Oregon State this weekend? Like, Oregon's in that 9 slot. If they win this weekend, they probably move up a little bit. They're probably secured to a 12. Oregon State beats them. Hey, win the Pac-12 next week against USC. It is elevating these rivalry games in week 13, or week 12. Week 13. It is elevating these rivalry games to levels you've never seen because teams know we win, we're probably in. We lose, we're either right there or we've got to win next week.
The rivalry games get some stakes back to them again.
Big stakes.
As long as you're in the hunt to play for your conference championship.
It's true. If you're in the hunt for your conference championship, that's almost like the back door, right? Hey, we can still win our conference championship. Like Alabama this year, Tennessee, who cannot make their conference championship, go lose to your in-state rival. I don't think you're going to make it in.
You're not getting that at large either.
Boop, you're gone. And I mean, it's crazy to think about that. So for everybody who thinks the playoff is going to lessen these games, for everyone who thinks these games won't matter as much, take a view this year and say, if this team beats that team's out. And this year, the stakes don't matter. Think in the future. Think of what a coach would be saying. Think what Vanderbilt's coach would be saying about Tennessee.
Yep.
They're going to get in without their best player. And they have to let them in just based on merit. Y'all beat them on the field on Saturday. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
It's true, man.
You gone.
It's true.
All right, Brian, let's go big screeners this week because, like I said at the beginning, good Lord all freaking mighty.
We got some good ones, man. We got some good ones.
We definitely got some big.
We got some good ones that matter.
Well, and the top one I put on the list.
Yeah. I mean, this is either going to be who's 5 or who's 4. The loser is going to be 5 or 4.
Yep.
Probably when all is said and done. So,
Michigan, Ohio State, high noon Saturday. Number 2 versus number 3. Which also makes we're going to have to get up and get to moving and lock down. It's like no extra sleep on Friday or Saturday into Friday into Saturday. That game, Brian, is a 7.5 point. Ohio State is the favorite. What are you thinking on this one?
I don't like the spread, but I do like Ohio State to win it.
All right. All right, Brian's.
So I'm not taking the. If it was money line, I'd take Ohio State, but I'm gonna take Michigan with the spread.
Yeah, the whole thing is all about Blake Corum to me on that one. Because I think if Corum plays, I think Michigan can win that game outright. I think Ohio State has seen a defense like this once all year. One time all year they've seen a defense like this. And that was at the beginning of the season, right? That was when they played Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, and they scored 21 on them in the horseshoe. I'll be very honest with you. I think Michigan's a lot more dynamic with whether Corum's there or not. I think if Corum plays, I think Michigan wins. I think if he doesn't, I think it is a war. It's like a 27-26 battle. I take Michigan in the points because, again, Ohio State hasn't seen this good of a defense. I think they're gonna run into some. Think of the Northwestern game because Pat Fitzgerald just knows how to prep a defense. It's going to be similar to that, and it's going to be close. Yep. All right. The next one I'll talk about, Brian, let's go to the number 4 team in the country. And some people might be asking, well, why are you talking about the TCU Iowa State game? Iowa State's 4-7. They're not good. You know, it's a struggle bus. Brian, the last time a top 5 team, and they were number 2 at the time, came into Ames, Iowa, it was about 11 years ago. You remember that game?
I do.
Oklahoma State rolls in. It
didn't go the way they wanted to.
If Oklahoma State wins, they are in the national championship game, and Oklahoma State lost. That was the pre-Matt Campbell era out in Iowa State too. So a lesser coach team. TCU's going in there after what they did at Baylor. And again, for those who did not see it, go to YouTube and find that. The stones of Sonny Dykes to run a play on 2nd and 7 and like a play, not we're just going to run it up the gut and then we're going to get behind and we're going to spike the ball and bring our kicker out. No, they ran like some sort of flat, like a running back flats play. Yep. And he gets tackled short of the line to gain. And I was just like in awe because that was going on the same time the Hokies game had ended. That was going on like 5 minutes after it happened. All right, now for this one, Brian. Now, luckily, this one, it's not in Ames. It's at Fort Worth. TCU is a 10-point favorite. The over-under is 47.5. Douse Sonny Dykes and the TCU Horned Frogs punch the ticket. Undefeated regular season.
I think they get it done. It's going to be close, though. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slog. TCU's a good team, but they obviously have some flaws. We'll see if Iowa State can take advantage of those and kind of keep it a little bit closer than it should.
All right, just so you know, here are Iowa State's. They've got 7 losses. Here are their loss totals. They lost to Baylor by 7. They lost to Kansas by 3. They lost to Kansas State by 1. They lost to Texas by 3. They lost to Oklahoma by 14. They lost to Oklahoma State by 6 and Texas Tech by 4. That team don't get blown out.
No.
TCU wins like 26-20, 27-20. I would take Iowa State's in the points. I'd take 10 points because I think what you said, I think Campbell's going to make that a slog. I do think just because of what happened last week, I think the focus for TCU, a lot easier to focus on, right?
Yeah.
After you have a game like that, like, listen, we can lose at any point in time. All right, this is one of those, Brian, when we talk about the CFP. If this was a year from now or 2 years from now, I think it's going to be a year because I think they're going to push this thing through next year. Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson, South Carolina, the Battle of the Palmetto State. And Clemson, say what you want to say, are this close to getting in, probably this close to being an at-large, even if they lost to Carolina, as long as they won this game. This would be a game like 2 years from now that would be massively interesting if the team's exactly where they were. Yep. Because South Carolina could absolutely say, well, now you have to win the ACC. You're not getting an at-large. You have to win the conference. And what's interesting is this is at Clemson. It is a high noon also on Saturday. So Michigan, Ohio State will be there. Clemson, South Carolina will be over here.
I'll have the big one here, the other one just above it here.
Well, we'll hit some other 12 o'clockers, I'm sure, here. But what are you feeling on this one? Clemson, 14.5-point favorite. 52 is the over-under. South Carolina coming off a huge win over Tennessee, where unfortunately Hendon Hooker tore his ACL, which is sad as shit.
Yeah,
for us as Hokie fans, just loving that guy.
Because I mean, he's still, I'd say, the favorite or the second favorite for the Heisman, win or lose in that game. Because he was still balling. So, I'm kind of back again where I was with Michigan and Ohio State.
Robbie.
Cock smack, yeah. I don't think they're going to lose outright. I do think that give me South Carolina the points. I think Clemson wins the game, but it's a dogfight.
It is a dogfight. Shane's got them playing good, got confidence with them right now. I'm on with you on that. I think you take South Carolina in the points. Just because of Clemson's game flow all year, they're not going to blow anybody out.
Nope.
If they're gonna beat them by over 14 points, it's gonna be a slow grind, and South Carolina's gonna make a few mistakes late. I think Shane will find his dad's enter and be like, if it's a 7-point game late, he's gonna play tight to the vest and hope they do something because of the quarterback there and the mistakes he can make. All righty. Saturday night, we go to I believe we are in the Coliseum for this. We are in the Coliseum. 7:30. 7:30. So 12 o'clock's covered and 7:30 is covered. So there's no telling what's in between at 3:30. There's going to be probably a plethora of games. But this one, it's Notre Dame USC. It is the wide open offense of Lincoln Riley and USC versus that staunch defense and running attack of Notre Dame. 64 over under. USC is a 5-point favorite. I'm not messing with the spread here of 5. I think this thing goes over 64. USC cannot defend anybody. They can score on anybody, but they cannot defend anybody. I just don't know what's going to happen. This will probably be the game where I'm probably going to be heavy on drinks and I'm staying up late to watch.
There you go.
Because I think it's going to be entertaining as shit.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the over here. And I think USC probably wins it outright, but I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be they're going to be slinging it on the USC side, and I think that you're going to see a lot of smash mouth runs, some big time runs from Notre Dame to kind of keep pace there.
You're going to see Notre Dame keep pace with big time runs. I'm wondering how much the Virginia product, Chris Tyree, how much run he gets on it. He has not gotten as much this year. He's kind of been their spell back. By the way, I'm gonna throw a name out to you if you remember this guy. Remember Audric Estime?
Yeah.
He is one of their big ones. He is their touchdown scorer for Notre Dame. So potentially former Hokie Lean is out at Notre Dame right now. So yeah, and again, if you think 12, and this is kind of what this segment's been built around, if Notre Dame seriously, if this is a year or two from now when it's on there, if Notre Dame seriously, they're ranked 15th right now. If they beat a top 10 USC team in the Coliseum and they go 9-3, look at that. Look at who's in front of them. Could they lead multiple people with that win and get there and be like the 12th or 11th seed?
I think they still need some help, but I think they could do it.
Yeah.
I think you probably need some help from K-State in particular.
Yep, you need K-State to lose to Kansas.
Yep.
But by the way, the best thing about the whole new setup per se is Notre Dame will never get a bye. Ever, as long as they stay independent. They will always be playing. Although it would be interesting to see some southern or warm weather team. Leprechaun. Robbie, what were you drinking tonight down in South Boston? Because I know that's where you are.
Robbie's at home getting hammered.
Robbie's at home getting hammered.
There we go.
But for real though, they will. But it would be lovely to see some really warm weather teams have to go to South Bend on a December afternoon to play a playoff game. All right, last one, Brian. We talked about this one earlier, and I really focused on this one when we were talking about the CFP. And that's that Tulane-Cincinnati game, man. It is high noon. It is on Friday. Get whatever you need to get done early. If you're being sent out for Black Friday shopping for your wife, just tell her 11:30. I'm turning around. I don't care. I'm coming home to watch this game. And basically, this is a pick 'em. Cincy's a 1-point favorite. It's a 46.5 over or under. I know a couple weeks ago you liked Tulane when they did help cover you with Tulsa. What do you say? Or UCF? Excuse me.
I'm taking Tulane here.
You're staying with it. Think it's their year.
I'm sticking with Tulane. Yeah, I think it might be their year to do a little punching up.
All right, because I think if Tulane does win, if Tulane wins the conference, they're going to get the New Year's Six bowl. But I'm gonna go opposite of you. I think Cincinnati and Luke Fickell, I think they upset them. Or they essentially, I consider an upset when 24 beats 19. I think that happens, and I think they play UCF, and Cincinnati is back in a New Year's Six playoff game again. All right, Brian, has anything broken in the last hour and 20 minutes?
Nothing that I see, buddy.
Nothing that you see? What's going on behind me? I was watching the Celtics scored like 74.5. Do they play defense in the NBA anymore?
Not really.
Not really.
Selectively.
Awesome. Well, wait, hold on. Wait a second. Let me put this up real quick. He's in Wilkesboro tonight. First of all, it must be a clear night in Wilkesboro.
Yeah, he can actually hit the comments.
He can actually hit the comments. All right. Well, if we've got nothing else, Brian, that does wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner Podcast, brought to you by Main Street Pharmacy in Blacksburg. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website, boundarycornerbt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. While you're there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe on our YouTube or your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. He's a little bit behind, though. He's talking about Cincinnati now. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long, play us in, play us out. Visit his website, jasonlongmusic.com, where it will link you to all of his music on Apple, Spotify, his YouTube, and Facebook pages. We thank you for listening. And the season may be over, but as always, let's go.
Hokies!
Each day I wander all across a lonely ground. No pity